What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast, where me and you are back collaborating again. We're kind of piggybacking off of the previous episode where she talked about toxic relationships, because it just made us both think about kind of how we've fed our ego by following different influencers or people giving relationships online and in social media. And we just wanted to kind of talk about why people go to social media for advice, and is that really good? Is it not? So if you're interested and you want to find out, this is definitely the episode for you to listen to. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Babbles Nonsense podcast with a collab with me from Trends into Wellness. We did an episode last week where we went over like kind of how to pinpoint toxicity in relationships. So this week we wanted to kind of, piggyback off of that and talk about a couple of other situations we have both ran into where we maybe scroll social media and we find dating advice from whether it be men or women, but for whatever reason on our examples, they're both men. And we
Both men.
kind of just, we just kind of wanted to talk about like taking it easy with the advice you find.
Yeah.
Um, and I can go ahead and start this off and say, like, I did a podcast probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, where I was going through it with a guy I dated probably a year and a half ago. Actually, 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. And I was going through it with the guy that I was back and forth with. And so I ran across this guy on social media, Ace Metaphor, which, if you know anything, y'all know I did a whole podcast episode, like played some of his clips. And I was like, wow, his advice is really good. This was probably before I did any sessions with you, because I would have talked to you
Hadn't
about
even
him.
met. Yes, we hadn't even met
Yeah.
at that. Yeah.
So I played it. I like was like, yeah, like this is what I'm taking from it. And like for me, like it was more of a like looking back at it, the advice that he was giving wasn't that it wasn't like didn't sound good, because it sounded wonderful, and he's got like over 1 million followers and all this other stuff. But like now that I've done sessions with you and I've healed and I'm no longer in that toxic situation, it's more when I look back and like, after we were talking about doing this podcast, it was more of a rah cheerleader type situation. Like it wasn't any kind of therapy, it wasn't healing me, it wasn't anything different than a friend wouldn't just be sitting there telling you like, screw him, you're better than that, you're beautiful,
Right,
you know?
right, right. No, I totally get it. I totally, and it's so interesting because and I used to be like this too. Like I used to follow this influencer, Jake Woodard, for a very long time because his content was actually relatable to my low self-worth that I used to have. I used to have very low self-worth and I used to be a chronic people pleaser. And I just, I just wanted everybody to like me and, things like that. So his content validated my own insecurities that I had within myself. And it also validated at that time that men are trash. And if a man is not masculine, he's not good enough. A man has
Right.
to be like this. He has to show up like this. He has to speak like this. He has to address things like this. If he doesn't do all of the things by the book that Jake Woodard has, he is not healthy for you. Women deserve better. You're a woman. You're gorgeous. You deserve so much better. Like, basically content which like strokes your ego, but actually doesn't feed your soul. He's not really fixing the problem,
Right, right.
but he's stroking your ego so he can take money from you.
Right. And that's what's funny, because like you hadn't heard of Ace Metaphor. I hadn't heard of Jake Woodard before we had talked about this podcast. So I looked up your guy, you looked up my guys, and then you were an immediate like, no, like why would you listen to this? And then I was immediately like, okay, well, I can see why people listen. Like it comes across very like, oh wow, this sounds amazing. This is what I want to hear, right? Like you said, the ego. And when I started watching your guys' videos and just kind of scrolling through as many as I could, it was very contradictory. If you watch them kind of a lot and you
Yes.
have done some work with a coach, because he would say something in his video like, men, because he directs them towards men and women. So he would be like in one video, he would be like, so men, like, if you want your woman to be more feminine in her feminine energy, you have to do masculine things. And then he would list off like the masculine things that men should do, right? Like as if those are the only masculine things.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then you would have 2 days later a video where he would be speaking to women saying, men don't like women in their masculine energy. So you need to start being in your feminine energy. And these are the things you need to do to be in your feminine energy.
Mhm.
Okay, well, now that I know what I know from you, from coaching with you, it's okay. There's got to be a balance of both feminine and masculine energy. And you have to give it to each other at different points when it's needed.
Exactly. And the thing here is like directing and saying that if it's not all the things that I list that he has to be, or if it's not all the things that I list that a woman has to be, then you're not in your feminine and you're going to attract you're going to attract a feminine man. So you have to be in your feminine to attract a masculine man. But actually in the reality of relationships, I've actually coached individual people, I've coached individual men and women, specifically relationship coaching, and I have coached couples multiple times on these things, is that being masculine and feminine, it's on and off, and it depends on the roles you take in the relationship, and it can keep changing and it
Right.
can keep growing. It's not that, oh, I have to be masculine, so I have to do all these things. Oh, I have to be feminine, so I have to do all these things. It doesn't work like that. That's not sustainable. Look around you and see if anybody is doing that, because they're not doing that. But the thing that he preaches is he's saying if it's not like that, if it's not according to those guidelines that I say, then it's not good enough. So what it's doing to women subconsciously, because I coach a lot of women who have this unrealistic standards. And guys, I'm just putting a disclaimer here. I love women. Women are amazing. I have no hate for women. I actually coach more women than men, okay? But as a coach, it is my job to also call them out when they are being unrealistic. So there was this woman that was like telling me, "Oh, I want my man to be this. If he doesn't fulfill all these things, then I'm not going to give him a chance to take me out on a date." And I was like, "But you like him. You're
Mm-hmm.
attracted to him. You told me that. Where
Yeah.
did you get this information from?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I follow this coach called Jake Woodard, and I like, you know what I mean?" So that is when I found out that it started limiting people. It's
Yeah.
not expanding, it's not helping you grow, it's limiting. So and then I was like, do you relate to it? Like before you watched his videos, did you have those similar values and preferences in a relationship? And she was like, no. I said, well, I really need you to stop consuming content and his content. And I need you to detach from dating for a little while and sit and think about what is it that you want,
Right.
not what any influencer is telling you to feed your ego.
And I have two parts of that. So I hope I can remember them. My first part is going to be that I also do not hate women. I used to say I'm not a feminist, but then when I talk to my friends, they're like, "No, you are. You're just not out here in the streets with, shirts saying that you're a feminist. You still
Right,
care."
right.
Um, but I do feel like sometimes we as women do not listen when it comes to what a man's needs are sometimes. And I
Mhm.
say that because let's just I'll give an example. So if you're in a relationship and a man's trying to do his best, because we know that men and women communicate differently. And if
Mhm.
a man's trying to do his best and you want him to communicate with you and you want him to tell you more things, and that one moment that he comes to you and you're tired from work, you're putting the kids up, and that one time that he has gotten brave and he has decided to be vulnerable, you say, "Not now. I don't want to hear it." And you
Exactly.
shut it down. And then the next time you go to him and you're like, "Well, why can't you just talk to me?" And he's like, "I tried."
Yeah, yeah.
So there's instances like that, or women are really bad about thinking men can read our minds. Like you'll do everything but say, "Can you just go clean the dishes out of the sink?" We'll be like, "God, I'm so tired. God, I've got to do this. God." And you're saying all that
Right.
with the intention of him going, "Oh, you're tired? Okay, I'll go finish the stuff that you got." No, men don't think like that.
That's so true. I'm so glad you pointed it out because women, I'm so sorry to call it out, but it's manipulation. You're not being honest. You're not being in integrity. One of my closest friends used to do that. She would just be like, "Oh, I'll do it." Like for her, she had like so much people pleasing
Hmm.
that she didn't know when to step it up and say no when she was exhausted. So she'll be like, "Oh, I'll do that. I'll cook the meal for the kids. I'll do this. I'll clean this. I'll do all that."
Right.
And she would come to me and complain and then be bitter saying he's not helping out. And I said, well, have you asked him for help? And she's go, yeah, I asked him like so many years ago. No, 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 no. Yesterday, when this happened, did you say you were actually exhausted? Did you ask him for help?
Hmm.
And she goes, no, he should know that. I said, this is where you're being toxic.
Well, and to say to that, like we also, I'm guilty of this. I'm particular about my cleaning. So if someone comes in and they're like, "I'll clean up for you," I'm like, "No, I got it. It's fine." But then I can't be mad about it later because I said, "No, I got it."
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so the second thing I wanted to say to that was like I went down this deep dive with Ace Metaphor because I was kind of embarrassed that I had put like this whole episode on my podcast. And I was like, I'm not embarrassed. Content changes, your feelings change. We're all different. My
Right.
opinion from what we're talking about today may be different in 2 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I went down this whole rabbit hole because like what he's going through in the media right now, apparently he's being quote unquote exposed by one of the people that were on his podcast and on his like tonight's conversation stuff. Her name is Keita Rose, and she's known to be bipolar. She talks about it. I wish I could think about what her podcast was called. It's something, oh, educated and unmedicated or something like that. It's really funny. Um, but she talks about how, you know, why do you think that he's able to give the advice that he gives? Because his whole identity around this was I was a former bad boy turned good boy, and I'm going to give you the playbook. That's what his, I guess, tagline would be. I mean,
Right.
I'm not going to say that's his tagline because I'm just saying that's what he would. That's his whole spiel. So
Right.
she's like, no, 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 no. You're still doing that. I'm out with you at these shows. Like you're still talking to women how you tell women not to be talked to. You're still playing women how you tell women not to be played because you're literally feeding into them and somehow it's working for him to get women. I guess because women think that he is the man that he's saying to look for.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you think, right?
Right.
I think you have to be really smart and know that just because they're influencers and they have a lot of money and they have a lot of followers, like please don't put anybody on a pedestal. Like even me, like if you're following me, don't put me on a pedestal because I may say something that may totally contradict your values, then unfollow me. Like don't follow my advice. Like be in integrity with your values, right? And you know what people do is when we're vulnerable, when we're looking for help and somebody says something to feed our ego, we immediately start looking up to them and we think, they have better advice, they should know better. But
Right.
actually, no, if you do the inner work and you're in integrity, you will probably have better advice for yourself and
Right.
realize that these people are not walking the walk, they're just talking the talk.
Right.
So this brings me to consume your content consciously.
Right. And so I went down this whole deep dive on TikTok because I love to use TikTok for research just because it's easy to find something. And, and so like there's all these men talking about like how women are crazy to sit here and listen to Ace Metaphor. And like one was like, you know how men knew that Ace Metaphor, all he was doing, he wasn't giving advice, he was just pandering to women. And I was like, how did I not see it?
Yeah,
And I
because
did.
you were vulnerable. You wanted help at that time. So I think it just caught you at that time. It's like the right person at the right time. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right, but still at the same time, like anything else that I do, I typically try to look up them elsewhere, and I didn't for some reason with him. And so, like now that I'm on TikTok, and maybe it's just being more exposed now because of the whole Keto Rose Ace Metaphor thing, but I
right.
was just like, this is so interesting. So if y'all are interested in this, like the whole thing is interesting. And me and my friends that used to share his videos back and forth because we were all three going through like toxic I don't want to say breakup because it wasn't really a relationship, but like an ending of a toxic situationship, I guess. So we would always send his videos back and forth and be like, yeah, oh my God, that's so true. It was just like a rah rah cheerleader moment. And then it's like, oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Like, you know?
And it's so interesting because, like, when you started working on your self-worth and you started working on your confidence and your identity, and then you watch these videos and then you're just not impressed.
Right,
Not
right. It's
impressed.
crazy. But
Like,
I mean, like, and that's the thing. And like, I think in one of the TikTok videos, this one man was like, women, what credentials does he have to be giving you relationship advice? And I was like, oh my God, I should know better. Like, it would almost be the same as if you came to me and said, hey, Jonna, I went down the street to this person who said she knew about thyroid disease. And I'd be like, okay, what were their credentials? Like, is she an
yeah.
MD, DO, MP? You would be like, oh, no, no, no. She's just a stranger down the street.
Oh
Like,
my
you would,
God.
like, logically, when someone says it like that, you're like, what the hell?
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say to you guys. It's like credentials is one thing, and the second thing is experience. Like, for example, if I'm a recovering alcoholic, I'm not, just FYI. If I'm a recovering alcoholic, I don't drink at all these days. But yeah, if I'm a recovering alcoholic and I want advice and guidance, I'm going to go to somebody that is a recovered alcoholic and has done the work and knows how to stay a recovered alcoholic. I'm not going to go to a person who has not had a drop of alcohol, period, because you don't know what it's like. You don't know how it feels. You don't understand the journey. You can't empathize. Like, for example, I talk about emotional wellness and I'm an emotional mastery life coach because that is what I do all day, every day. And I've had low self worth, I've had people pleasing, I've had countless amounts of traumas, and I have actually healed from all of those. And I continue to do the work. And I am very good at emotional mastery. Like, I am good at regulating my emotions. And I help to do that with my clients because I have walked the walk. I'm not trying to toot my horn, but that is who you should be following. That is who you should be working with. That is who, like, see if they're actually walking the walk. If
Right.
you're following an influencer and they're preaching and stroking your ego, look into it.
But it's crazy when we think about like that. Like, and you would think it would be so simple, but when it comes to mental health, I think that when we're feeling low or we're feeling down or we're feeling a certain way, we want to hold on and grab onto anything that makes us feel better. So it doesn't really matter where the advice is coming from as long as it's feeding that ego and making us feel better. But when
Right.
I think about it logically, like me being in healthcare, if I broke my arm, I'm not going to go to a cardiologist. I'm going to go to an orthopedic.
Exactly.
So when I think about it like that, like literally this just hit me just now in this podcast. Like I was like that example. I was like, what an idiot, Jonna. But I think
Well,
it is
we've
because,
all been there. We've
but I
all
think
been.
it's just because mental health is so like we don't talk about it. We don't, sometimes we're shamed by it. Sometimes we don't know who to reach out to. So we
Mhm.
go to social media, number one, because it's already a dopamine hit, anyways.
It is.
And then
Yeah.
when you follow these influencers like Jake Wooder or Ace Metaphor, your algorithm is going to get more of that, more advice, more of that, where it's telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah, you are. And you know what's so interesting? Nobody, like, I used to send like Jake Woodard's videos to my girlfriends. Nobody caught it. The one person that actually caught it was a male friend. And he was like, huh. I was like, okay, that's a very interesting reaction. Do you have anything to say? And then he was like, do you notice how he says he's helping women, he's helping men step into their masculinity, but all his followers are women. Look at all his comments. It's women. I don't see a man commenting on his. I'm like, oh my God. I
Well, when I,
cannot believe I didn't catch
well,
that.
when I would send like Ace Metaphor stuff to like my guy friends, like to be like, see, you guys are idiots.
Mhm.
And they would be like, okay, I don't like this dude. I would be like, that's just because you don't want to hear the truth.
Oh my God. And that's the thing, guys. It's like when
Hashtag embarrassing.
I know it is embarrassing for all of us. I'm sure all of us have done that. And it's like when we are vulnerable, that is when we actually have to be more careful. And if you are taking somebody's advice, you like somebody, this is just take this is my free advice. Take it or leave it. Don't put them on a pedestal.
Right.
They're not perfect. Maybe you're able to relate to one of their videos, one of their things, one of their quotes. Cool. That doesn't mean they are the leader for you in all aspects of life. That doesn't mean you have to walk their walk. Like, no, 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 no. Just take the advice. If it applies to you, follow that advice. but be in integrity and check in with your values to see if that aligns with your values. Because let me tell you, with this Jake Woodard situation where he says men have to be like this, women have to be like this, I have seen a completely different dynamic where, I mean, I've coached couples and I've coached a woman that is very masculine. You know, she actually is the breadwinner of the family, and her husband takes care of her three children. And trust me when I say I know that they have a very happy marriage.
Right.
A
Right.
very healthy, happy marriage, and that works for them.
And we've always been taught if you ever hear someone say never or always, run,
Yeah.
because it's not never
Yes,
or always. There's going to
yes.
be intricacies, there's going to be differences, there's going to be that one. I know for myself, like with my health and my thyroid, it did not fit the mold. And it took multiple doctors looking at me to finally figure out what was going on with my thyroid because I
Yep.
wasn't textbook.
Mhm. And that's so true. And what you said, it's very like black and white thinking. It's saying it's either this or it's nothing. Whenever anybody says that, they're just trying really hard to like manipulate you into almost convincing you that their way is the right way. And that is a very big red flag for me.
Yeah.
It's a very big red flag. Like for it's like me saying there's only one way to meditate, or it's like me saying there's only one way to regulate. No, there's thousands of ways to regulate. You know, what I do works for me. That doesn't mean it's the only way,
Right.
you know? So anybody that says that, they're just, they want to make money, guys. They just
Well,
want
but
to,
also, like, what tools are they giving you to change
yeah, that's a
other
good,
than content?
yeah.
They're not giving you any tools like they're not saying, "Hey, follow my link, like here, like pay." Well, he actually does. He's like, you seriously, 30-minute phone call with him is $500, I think.
Oh. For him to preach something
I don't want
that
to like misquote, but I'm pretty sure.
yeah, and yeah, it's like for him to preach something which he doesn't believe in. You know, it's something that he's not doing. And he's not even following that. He's not even walking the walk, and he's, you know, preaching people. So, you know, when it comes to influencers,
I think he
like,
lowered his prices, so I just looked because I wanted to fact check myself. But a 30-minute coaching phone call with him is $200, which I know it's like a marketing scheme, but it's 199.97. It's $200.
that is a marketing scheme. And again, I can't speak about that because people can charge whatever they want. But for me, what
But I'm
aligns
saying
with,
like you have like certifications.
yes.
This man is just a former bad boy turned good, quote unquote.
Yeah. And he's not even practicing what he speaks. He's just preaching it, but he's not walking it. You
Right.
know, that puts him in a very like inauthentic place. And I think that's where guys, especially women, you know, because we are more in tune with our emotions, we're more sensitive, we feel things more deeply, we're more, you know, in touch with our vulnerability and all these things. When somebody says something relatable, we just like catch on. We just catch on, we believe it. All we are telling you in this episode is to like filter who you're following, consume content more responsibly, because that is our job. We can do that, you know. And some of the most red flags that I've seen with influencers, which I really want to talk about, so that what you can take away from this podcast is anytime they're overusing things like, oh, you need this course. If you don't get this course, this is what's going to happen to you. If you don't do this program, this is what's going to happen to you. Anytime they put that sense of scarcity in your mind, run, because they don't believe in their own product.
Right.
They don't believe in their own product. Like when I'm talking to my clients, I will say I do have limited spots available because I do have limited spots available. But I'll always say, if you can work with me this month, call me next month.
Mm-hmm.
What we can do. I'm never going to say, oh, if you don't hire me now, you're doomed, or you're going to be like this. You're going to spiral. If you don't get my course, you're going to spiral. Like that is very,
Actually, I had a coach do that to me right before I decided to work with you. Like she was calling me, texting me all the time saying, "Have you made your decision yet? Have you made your
oh,
decision yet?
God.
If you do not make your decision, like I'm going to be booked out for the next 8 months." Now that you say that, like,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
absolutely not. I'm glad you could see through that.
Well, it's just to me, I don't, number one, I don't like to be like, what's the word? Like pressured, I guess. Like it's kind of like when I walk into the store Buckle and there's like five people, cashiers that are like, "Hey, can I help you? Can I help you? Can I help you? Do you want to try on a pair of jeans?" And I'm like, "I gotta
Yeah,
go.
I gotta go. Yeah, I'm
I
like that too.
gotta
I'm
go."
like that too. And actually, what works for me, it's so funny, guys. It's like what works for me is when I go into a store and they come to me and they say, "Hey, I'm gonna be around. If you have questions,
Yep.
you come to me."
Right.
Respect. I immediately feel like a sense of ease and like
Yep.
not over me. There's no sense of burden, pressure. It's amazing. And then the second thing that I want to talk about is like when they're always like trying to sell something but they're not showing proof of how the product is going to work. They're not showing proof of how it worked for them, the transformation that they had. They're not showing you anything. They're just talking about your pain points and they're trying to sell you that shit. So
Yeah.
that is another very big red flag. And then the other one that I've seen is contradicting themselves, which Jonna pointed out, which Jake Woodard has done a few times and a few other influencers have done. They'll say something in one video and then you scroll and you see something else. They would have they would have contradicted themselves so many times throughout that.
Mm-hmm.
To me, tells me you're speaking something that's getting views to like make your content blow up on the internet, but you're not being in integrity. My mom always said this, which always sits with me. She'll say, if you speak the truth, you don't have to remember anything,
Well, hey, that's good. I like that.
right?
Yeah,
If you
that's
speak the
good.
truth, you don't have to remember anything.
I like that.
It's
Well,
so
because
good.
well, I mean, it's no different than when my aunt tells me all the time, just argue with facts. Who can fight facts?
Yeah.
Who can
Yeah.
fight the truth? Like if you state your truth, people people can't argue the truth and facts.
They
You
really
can
can.
you can argue emotion, you can
Yeah.
argue feelings, but you can't really sit there and argue back and forth when it's just factual. Like me and you is sitting here with a podcast on February 10th wearing a green shirt. What do you argue that back? No, I'm not. This is what's another color for green? Evergreen. This is not green. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally like agree with that. So it's like I had this experience, right? I was working with a business coach who wanted me to change my language. She wanted me to change the way I was speaking and my captions. And I honestly, guys, I tried it for a week and then I hated it because it felt like I was being someone else.
Well, it's
And
inauthentic.
it's inauthentic. And I told her, I said, I don't think this is going to work because there is a huge trust factor for me with my clients, and there's a huge percentage of repeat clients that I get because they trust me and they love me because I am who I am. Like I swear, I curse. I'm very brutal in my sessions. I'm very straightforward. I'm not for the faint of hearts. John knows this.
Hey, I like it. I like it's the perfect personality for me.
So it's like I can't be someone else. So what's happening here in this age is I understand that they have bills to pay. I understand that they're trying to make money. But the inauthenticity, it's causing a bigger divide. It's causing even more mistrust with what's out there.
Right.
So
More confusion in the dating world where we don't need more confusion.
there's already enough tension between men and women right now due to all these random ass people giving advice on the internet without qualifications, without proof, without enough information, without compassion, because every situation is different. I'll give you another example here. Like one of my close friends, like she wanted like this idea that she had of a masculine man because that was like very attractive to her. But then when she started dating her person because she really liked him, she found out that he had more feminine characteristics. So, it's so beautiful because they've been dating for almost like 5 years now. And I can see that they've both evolved so much, and he's naturally stepped so much into his masculinity, and she stepped into his femininity because they grew together and they built the relationship together. It is not something you check off in the box. It's not something it doesn't work like that. Sometimes when you start something, it may not be so perfect. You build on it, you grow with it.
Right. No, I agree because I think that's what we're taught as women, 6 feet tall, gotta be
Yeah.
tan, gotta be handsome. That these check boxes, they gotta be financially sound. They gotta, you know, what if you as the woman make more money? Why do they have to be financially sound? If you're financially sound and you can take care of both of you, why does that matter? Because society says it matters.
Right, so that I think that's where, I think we keep talking about this, which is like individual values, like find out what individually works for you and what your individual values are. And I'm going to be very honest and just say this, even your best friends might be giving you some toxic advice. They might be like, oh, he ain't good enough for you, or
Hmm.
oh, he's not good enough for you. No, don't listen to people, don't listen to anyone. Sit with yourself and identify your core values. Like, trust me. I have had some toxic advice from some of my friends, love them to death, but I've had some toxic advice from
Yeah,
them.
a lot of the ones that you'll hear the most is you're too pretty for him, or like
Mm.
she's not good looking enough for you, like she's not, you hear that one a lot.
Yeah, and I hate that. I
Yeah.
it's so superficial. Again, guys, like don't come at me and be like, "Oh, so you're telling me not to date a good-looking man?" Sure, if that's your value, go for it. If that's in your fundamental core value, go for it.
But
If
also
it
what's good looking to me may not be good looking to
That's
you.
because beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. Like completely, fully agree. Like, you know what I mean? So it's
Hmm.
like, I think it's very, very important to be in integrity. It's very important to identify your own values, your truth, what you find attractive. And and another thing that I would like to add that I want to say is like whatever happened to in sickness and in health, whatever happened to that these days? Because and
I'll tell you this, in my personal opinion, since you've been in a relationship for a while, I
yeah.
truly believe that dating apps, this wrong dating advice that we turn to versus healing ourselves, social media, there's too much availability. And I think that people have quickly forgotten that the grass isn't always greener. And I think that it's easier to just be like, you know what? You're getting on my nerves. I'll just go on this app over here and start swiping again.
And we've had that experiences, right? Like married men, people that are committed in committed relationships.
Oh, yeah. I've had married men definitely slide into my DMs before, which is ridiculous, like ridiculous. And it just really infuriates me because I'm just like, what is it that you even think that this is, that I'm okay with this, first of all? So you're, to me, that's just thinking negatively about me, which I know it's not. I know I'm taking it too personal because they're going to be in the next person's DM. It's just whoever's going to say
So
yes,
it has
right?
nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them.
But secondly, it's just disgusting. Like it, and then it literally makes me lose all faith in men because I'm like, so you want a good man, you see that they're portraying this quote unquote perfect family on their social medias, but meanwhile, you know it's really up because they're in
They're in
DMs.
your DMs.
And it's just like embarrassing, not for me, for them. And then I had a girl one time and it really kind of upset me. She was like, "Well, what are you doing to make them think it's okay to talk to you?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" Like, number one, I don't know some of these people I don't know.
Yeah.
They're trying to friend me on social media.
Yeah.
I'm doing nothing. I'm
Right.
posting pictures with my friends.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, why is it like, and that was, it just made me think about how when people are like, when like, for instance, if a man cheats on a girl, sometimes that other girl, the girl is like, goes after the other girl, but doesn't even punish the man that cheated.
I hate that. It's
So
like
that's the
total.
kind of, yeah, that's the kind of feeling that I got when she said that. I was just kind of like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild to me. That's wild to me. And I do feel like, there's like, for example, I don't want to bring my culture into this. I mean, I am Indian, like born and raised. So when I came to America, I had a shock that there was 50% more, what is it, 50% divorce rates?
It's high. I don't know what it is, but it's high.
Yeah. And in India, it's less than 1%. Again, I'm not saying that's good. I don't think you should stay somewhere where it's abusive or toxic for you. That is not what I'm saying. But what we were taught, it's to actually fix the bulb instead of replacing the bulb.
Yeah,
And
because people just it's disposable.
yeah, fix like what I saw with my parents is even when they had conflict, even when they had difference of opinions, they would talk about it, they would fix it. My dad didn't go and get another mom or another woman, and my mom didn't cheat on him, and
Right.
not what I saw. So for me, it's like when I came here and I saw that there's so many options, I found out that maybe that is the issue. Maybe that's the problem. Like there's options, and there's also like lack of redefining your core values, or not
Right.
even knowing what your core values
When
are.
like just going back, like my core value is that I do want a committed relationship. So when that girl said that to me, it just really hurt my feelings a lot because like I
Mm,
actually like this is really people are going to probably say this is wrong of me, but when I found out my sister had had an affair with a married man, I called his wife and told her.
mm,
Like I was very young. I was like 16 years old, but I was like, you know what? I don't stand for this.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Right.
like, so I think when she just said that to me, it just really hurt my feelings because that is something I'm very against.
Right. Right. And I think that's also something we need to realize, right? It's like influencers, people, whoever, whatever they say, your best friends giving you advice, everything is a projection. It has nothing, 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. It is a projection of where they're at and what they believe.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why it's so important when if you're having dating issues, if you're having relationship issues, you don't know how to make a choice, please stop asking your friends for advice. I am sorry. I love my friends. If any of my friends, if you're listening to this, you know I love you. It's nothing against you guys. I just believe that if I'm a friend, if somebody's coming to me and asking for advice, I will ask them. Now, what I've started doing right now these days is, do you want me to give you advice as a professional, or do you want me to give you advice as a friend?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's going to be different. It's going to be different.
Right.
Because as a friend, I'm more protective of you. And, I care about you more than the other person, whoever that is. So I'm going to protect you because I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually a very protective person.
Yeah.
But as a coach, I'm going to give you professional advice, and I don't care about hurting your feelings. I'm going to tell you what's right in the long term.
Right. I agree. I agree.
So it's like, this is where I think, once again, I know we touched on this in the previous episode, which is do the work, find out who you are, find out your triggers, find out your wounds so that you're not influenced by influencers. You're not, sucked in by the collective, sucked in by what men are saying, what women are saying on the internet. Just because they're viral, just because they have a million followers, doesn't mean you have to put them on a pedestal. Learn how to consume consciously, check for proof to see if they're authentic,
Yeah.
then check with yourself to see if your values aligns with them before you buy their product or buy their service. And then look for urgency. If they're saying, oh, do this by this timeline or you'll never get it, or you can never work with me, and all those are red flags, because if
Yeah.
they truly believe in their product, if they believe in their service, they will have an abundant mindset.
I mean, I agree with all that. And like, just for example, like sometimes I'll get and do solo podcasts on just thoughts and opinions that I have. I am in no means or no way here to give anyone relationship advice. Look at me. Like my relationship status is single. So, but sometimes I do jump on my platform and just rattle off things in my head. And sometimes that's what content creating is sometimes they have this thought and they were like, this could go viral, and sometimes it's just like I use my podcast as a verbal diary sometimes because once I've said it, it gets out of my head and I feel the energy release. So for me, it's more of a verbal diary, not trying to make anything go viral. But sometimes I do have these thoughts. And so sometimes maybe that's all it is when they put out this content was I just had this thought. This would make
Mhm.
good content. Let's put
Mhm.
it out there. Maybe there was no thought this will help somebody.
Right. And I think that's where I think it also comes as to saying that don't put them on a pedestal, right? It
Right.
comes to a point because it's like they may literally be taking a walk and they may have this thought and they talk about it. And maybe the intention is not even to sell you on anything, just to talk to you about it. And then you take their advice, and then now suddenly they've become your guru, and they've become your teacher. And if they say something that contradicts what they've said before, then now you're furious. So
Well, I mean, because
it,
I've done it. I've gone on a walk and I've been like very frustrated about something and had this keep showing up in my life. And I will be like, you know what? I'm going to talk about this on the podcast because I can't be alone, right? Somebody else has to have this thought out there. Like, and it's almost to feel less alone so that someone can relate and say, I've been through that too. I've had those thoughts too. You're not crazy. You're not. It's more of a looking for companionship through social media in a way. That's my
right,
intention. I'm not saying
right.
that's their intention.
No, absolutely not. And I think with your intentions, Jonna, like, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and with your intentions, it's very clear. You see what I'm trying to say? That's what I mean. Like, what my mom said, it's like if you're saying the truth, you have nothing to hide.
Right.
Like, you don't have to worry about forgetting anything or remembering anything. And because for you, you don't portray yourself as a coach, you don't portray yourself as a therapist, you don't portray yourself that you're a professional and giving advice. You don't do that. So your people know it's literally the name of your podcast is Babble, which is there is babbles, which means I'm going to talk about my thoughts and I'm going to process my thoughts in this. So it's not misleading.
Yeah, true.
However, the influencers that, we talked about before, they're misleading.
Right.
We're just saying, consume consciously.
Right.
Be careful because there's too much information out there, and align with your personal values, check with your personal values, your identity in the core as to who you are. And then if you like them, of course, support them. I'm one of the people that post content. Support them, like, comment. If you relate to it, if you really feel like there's value, buy from them. But otherwise, don't.
Right.
Be conscious, be aware. All right, on that note, we're going to wrap it up. This was a very interesting subject because we both had so many examples to share. So,
All right, guys, until next time, thank you for listening and bye.
bye.